Hello, adventurers of all shapes and sizes. My name is Chance. Welcome to my guide, and thank you for tuning into another episode of our character creation series. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Ancestries. In the view of Pathfinder 2e, Ancestries are essentially your race. What group of people do you belong to? Now, let's take a look at what your ancestries provide you with. Looking through several forums, I realized that the most common complaint people had regarding ancestries was their position in relation to the character sheet itself, so I'll have that animation going on in the background. But in terms of what your ancestry decides, it's your hit points, it's what size of creature you are, it's your movement speed, it's your ability boosts, your ability flaws, languages you can speak, a couple traits, and some senses as well. All of those have corresponding sections on the first page of the character sheet booklet. Ultimately, you're going to be referring to these throughout the game. We've already covered ability boosts and ability flaws in the previous video, so if you don't know what those are, check that video out. We really go in depth there. Now, a couple things that I really want to drive home. This is the step in which you decide whether or not you take on any optional flaws. In the previous video, we mentioned if you take on 2 flaws, you get an ability boost. This is a stage where you do that. That being said, you can't double up on ability boosts. So we took the dwarf kind of stat block for this example. So if you took 2 extra flaws, let's say 1 to strength and 1 to dexterity. Don't know why you don't want to do that, but just for example. And you got an extra boost. Your extra boost could not be constitution or wisdom or whatever kind of free boost you get. Also worth pointing out, if you decide to roll your stats, that free option there does not exist. You sacrificed it to roll your stats. Just so you know, this is a stage in which all that comes into play. Now, looking at the languages, you'll notice you actually get to add an extra language equal to your intelligence modifier. So if you have an intelligence modifier of 2, you get to pick 2 extra languages of the options provided, which is great. I really love that Pathfinder 2e did that. That being said, every race is a little bit different. And we will be going over each individual race in a little bit later on here. But what you need to know is this is a stage where you deal with the boost flaws, extra flaws. You will get other boosts in later steps, but that's kind of beside the point. Now let's quickly take a moment here and check out heritages. A heritage is essentially your subrace, as it were. In terms of the dwarf, they actually have access to 5, namely the Ancient Blooded Dwarf, the Death Warden Dwarf, the Forge Dwarf, the Rock Dwarf, or the Strong Blooded Dwarf. Very cool stuff. There's a ton of sub-races or heritages in Pathfinder 2e, and I'm really happy with what Paizo did here. Very impressive stuff. Now, technically, there is some name recommendations here as well. I really don't like going with what these games recommend. I find a lot of them are actually pretty tricky to pronounce, and a lot of them are very similar to one another. Paizo did a good job of making that last one not really the case, but ultimately, this is all just flavor text and doesn't really do anything for you mechanically, so it's not really worth diving into in this video. When we take a look at all the ancestries one by one, that's when we'll dive into it. What you do need to know, however, is you will list your ancestry and your heritage at the top of the character sheet, and then on the second page, you put your heritage and ancestry related feats in that top corner box. And that's really about it. That wraps up all you need to know about heritages and ancestries starting out. So, that being said, let me know what your favorite heritage and what your favorite ancestry is down below. Let me know which ones you're excited to play or look into a little bit more. Also, be sure to drop any questions, comments, or concerns you have down there as well. That being said, I hope you all have a great day, and as always, happy adventuring, everyone.